Okay, there's one last thing that I wanted to show you as far as the corner orientation is that you can influence now. I've put the centers where they belong in relationship to each other on the cube, and then I've pulled out this first block because I want to show you a couple things that'll take place. Right now, currently, my top color is red. So one thing that you want to pay attention to that you can do during the next two steps, the first one is, as I put this block in, I can now influence what color is on the top, be it either white or yellow. And either one of those is fine, and it doesn't make a difference whatsoever which color you put to the top, but you do want either your white or yellow color to go to the top here. So as I insert this block, watch this maneuver that I'm going to do. So my left-hand block is good, my right-hand block is solid except for these two pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these two pieces in, and then rather than just doing an R prime, which would leave that red on top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little R prime and actually influence that yellow to the top layer. And I would do that before I go into my CMLL, and then I'm going to solve this with that same Bruno case that I showed you before. Okay, so you can see how much kind of happened there in just really a short amount of moves. At this point in the solve, it doesn't matter whether or not there's a yellow on top or there is a white on top. So what I'm going to do is basically show you guys the last 6 edges. So these edges could have bad orientations. Any orientations will happen in pairs, so there'll be either 2 bad pieces, 4 bad pieces, or 6 bad pieces in various spots on the cube. This is where deductive reasoning comes into play, that I can use deduction in order to determine, without turning the cube, which my bad edges are. So from right here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I have 1 here, and then 1 on the other side in the bottom. So by having information on this piece, it can tell me what the orientation is on the back piece. So what I'm going to do really quick is I have my 6 edges pulled out here with blanks, so I'm going to put those in, and I'm going to put them in a solved state here as quickly as I can. And then I'll start going over different orientation cases for you guys, so you can see how you would actually orient the last pieces on the cube. And there it is. Okay. So I'm going to show you now how to look for basically good edges and bad edges. At this point, all that matters is that I have either white or yellow, both the center and my edges, on the top and on the bottom. So these are all correctly oriented. Actually, let's do this. There you go. So that is correctly oriented, these are all correctly oriented, etc., etc. What it would look like if I have unoriented pieces would be like this. So on this, I have 2 unoriented pieces, which are right here. Okay, so by deductive reasoning, since I do not see a white or a yellow piece here, I can tell you that there's only 2 bad pieces and that these 2 bottom ones are fine. They're either white or yellow. As a second example, I can see that I have 1 bad edge on the top, the rest are white or yellow, so they're good. And since I can see a yellow piece here, which I should not be able to do, I can tell that both of these are my 2 unoriented edges. You can have 2 like that, you can have 2 opposing each other. You can have 2 down on the bottom, and there's different kind of like intuitive algorithms that you would use to fix the orientation of all those pieces. You can have 4 on the top. You can have 2 of those sitting on top, 2 of them sitting on the bottom. This is a case that you would be likely to come across. You can also have all 6 out of whack. So there's 4 bad ones here, and bad ones on the bottom. Pretty much at this point, I don't know whether or not I want to actually go through each and every case and show you what they are, but there's really only so many cases that you'll come across. In order to solve this, pretty much it always reduces down to what I like to call the arrow. And the arrow is best explained. Let me actually get colors so that at least look normal for you guys. Many of you are familiar with this algorithm when you have 2 bad edges right here. So follow what happens with these two bad edges as I start doing middle slices and U-turns. So I'm going to go M prime, U, M, and then what I have basically is a little arrow. So I have 3 unoriented pieces on the top and then 1 unoriented piece on the bottom. So what I do when I come across this case, which almost everything reduces to, just about every algorithm reduces it to this state before the last couple of moves, is you point that arrow. So consider him to be like an arrow pointing that way, right? You point the arrow towards the bad piece. So now the arrow is pointing towards the bad piece. You bring the bad piece towards the arrow, turn the top layer any direction, and then turn the middle layer any direction. Then that will solve that case. So I'm going to show you some different ones, and you'll see that constantly reappear. So I have a bad edge on the back on the top, and I have a bad edge on the front on the bottom. Oh, look at that. I did 2 moves, and now I have my arrow. So I simply point my arrow towards my bad piece, bring my bad piece towards my arrow, turn it any direction, and go. Okay, so now I have 2 bad pieces on the bottom. So watch what I'm going to do here. There's my arrow. Point my arrow towards my bad piece, which is on the back, and I can deduce that because this is not white or yellow. So that tells me that my bad piece is over there. So basically I point it towards my bad piece, bring my bad piece towards the arrow, turn it any direction, turn it any direction. Actually, here's an interesting one. Some of these cases are very, very quick to solve and very, very easy to remember. So here's 2 cattywampus unoriented edges here, and then 2 on the bottom. This one's really easy. M prime U, M prime U, M prime U. Did you guys see that? There's my arrow. Let me do that again. So there's bad edge, bad edge, bad edge, bad edge. M prime U, M prime U. See my arrow pointing towards my bad piece? M prime U, M prime. A lot of these can be figured out intuitively, but that's really all there is to figuring out these bad edges. How many bad edges do I have? Can't tell yet because this needs to be white or yellow. Bring him white or yellow. Now I can see. So there's 3 here. There's my 4th one. Point my arrow towards my bad piece towards the arrow, turn and go. There's some special algorithms that will do all 6 in a single algorithm. So I would use a special algorithm that does that. However, it can be done numerous ways. There is no... It's kind of the nice part about Roux is that there is no like absolute way that you need to solve each of these cases because they can all be done so many different ways. So sometimes even just depending on the position of the cube in your hand will determine which way you decide to solve unoriented edges. So one last thing to note is that during all these edge orientations, it's not influencing the position of the corners or their relationship to each other. That's the reason why you want to solve it in that order, is that you do your first block, your second block, orientation and permutation of the corners, because nothing that you're going to do here is going to influence the orientation or position of your corners. So there's that next step. My video is running a little bit long on this one. But yeah, this is kind of like the fun part of Roux. Numerous ways to do the same algorithm. Here's a perfect example. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do the same algorithm. So M prime U, M, U2, M prime U, M. Okay, let's do it again. So there's the case that I had. I can do it a completely different way. M prime U, M prime, U2, M prime, U, M, M prime. So yeah, that just shows you that there's numerous ways to influence the direction of the edges. A lot of times, if you don't know how to do a specific case, you can usually set up the one that you're actually looking for. So let's say you don't know how to solve this case with a single algorithm, which is one unoriented in the front, one in the back. You can actually just set up a different one instead. So now you can set up one that you may be more familiar with. Okay, so I'm going to kind of finish up this with one more video here in just a second. So I guess on to video 4.